how can one person in, a single lifetime embody such extreme contradictions?
It's a fascinating question.
We're talking about a figure whose name just brings up this idea of relentless utopian optimism, but then underneath it all, this profound anxiety and darkness and conflict.
That's absolutely the central puzzle we're diving into today, Walt Disney.
Yeah.
He's revered, right, as a genius, an American patriot.
Yeah.
The ultimate pop culture popularizer.
But then you look at the historical criticism.
And he's just as often denounced as a symbol of intolerance, even of American cultural imperialism. The sources really show both sides.
So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack all of that, the biographical analyses, the criticism, the testimony, to really understand what shaped this incredibly complex man.
We're looking for the nuggets, right? The things that explain his relentless, almost painful drive for perfection.
Even when that drive led to just devastating conflict.
And to understand the man, you really have to start at the beginning. Biographical analysis, especially from a lifespan theory approach, it really emphasizes how these non-normative, sometimes traumatic, early events can shape you for decades.
And for Walt, that was his childhood, that work ethic.
With the legendary paper route in Kansas City. He started when he was only 9 years old.
9. And it wasn't just a casual job.
Oh, not at all. His father, Elias, demanded perfection. Walt was working 7 days a week, both morning and afternoon routes, and he wasn't paid a penny.
For 6 years, right? I think he missed something like 5 weeks in 6 years.
That's it. And it wasn't just about delivering the paper. The sources are really clear on this.
The placement had to be meticulous.
Exactly. Neatly folded, tucked under a brick on the porch. If it was raining, it had to go inside the storm door. This constant pressure, it was so intense.
40 years later.
40 years later, he admitted he still had nightmares about it.
And that detail-oriented discipline is what fueled his ambition. But he didn't get any warmth at home. He had to find that somewhere else.
Right. He found his laughing place, as he called it, at a neighbor's house, the Pfeiffers. So you see the duality right there. This intense, harsh discipline at home, and then this desperate need for an imaginative escape.
Which was a pattern that was tested again and again in his professional life. His first studio, Laugh-O-Gram Films,
Went bankrupt in 1923. A setback, for sure. But the really devastating blow came in 1928.
the Oswald the Lucky Rabbit incident.
Yes. He goes to New York to renegotiate his contract with his distributor, Charles Mintz.
And he walks into a trap.
A complete ambush. Mintz had hired away most of his animators, and crucially, he pointed out that the Oswald character rights belonged to the distributor, not to Walt.
So he lost his staff, his biggest character, and all his income, all at once. The sources say it was like he ran straight into a stone wall.
I mean, what do you do? On the train ride back to California, completely defeated, he starts sketching. He gets together the few loyalists who stayed, like the brilliant Udi Works.
And they create a new character.
A new character that this time they would own. And that was Mickey Mouse. The lesson from Oswald was never, ever give up control.
And Mickey's success just kicks off the golden age of animation, all fueled by Walt's obsession with plussing, constantly improving everything.
He had this incredible sense of what an audience wanted next. The first big leap was sound.
Right. The first 2 Mickey shorts were silent and didn't get a distributor.
So Walt just mortgages everything and says, we'll make him over with sound.
Steamboat Willie, 1928. The sound was perfectly synchronized, which no one had ever really seen before. It just knocked audiences out of their seats.
It wasn't just background noise. It was part of the gags. But he didn't stop there. He took the profits and invested in the next big thing, color.
The 1932 cartoon, Flowers and Trees.
In full, 3-strip Technicolor. A huge, expensive gamble. And it paid off immediately. Won the very first Academy Award for a cartoon short.
He was using those silly symphonies as his personal R&D lab, wasn't he? Testing sound, color, and the multiplane camera. That was the game changer that made feature films possible. It created a sense of real depth, of parallax. It made the cartoon world feel, well, real.
Which brings us to Disney's folly. Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs in 1937.
Everyone in Hollywood thought he was insane. The production was agonizing, glacial, because Walt demanded absolute realism.
He brought in live animals for the animators to study, hired a teenage dancer to model for Snow White.
One source mentions they literally threw heavy things through panes of glass just to analyze how it shattered so they could animate it perfectly.
So much anxiety before the premiere, but it was a massive success. Harvard and Yale gave him honorary degrees. They called him the creator of a new language of art.
And that success gave him the capital, both financial and psychological, to take that perfectionism and apply it to the physical
Well,
world.
the perfect transition, because that drive now expands beyond film into architecture, into community design.
It starts with the new Burbank studio in 1939. It was designed for, and I'm quoting the sources here, absolute efficiency. He wanted to create a self-contained community.
A controlled world,
Yeah.
which was just a stepping stone to his ultimate utopian vision.
EPCHA, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. When he announced the Florida project in 1965, EPCHA wasn't just an idea, it was the heart of everything.
The plan was just staggering. A city that will never be completed, always testing new materials, a showcase for American ingenuity.
He had a very specific physical plan. A high-density center, a green belt for recreation, and then these residential areas radiating out in petals.
And no traditional cars in the residential areas, right? Just electric carts and the people mover. A totally planned, frictionless city.
That philosophy was already working in Disneyland, which opened in '55. He saw it as living animation, a living movie, a way to step inside the film.
But there's always that counterpoint, that superhuman drive for perfection. It came at a huge cost, both professionally and personally.
Think back to the paper route. All that unpaid, meticulous work. It seems to have really shaped his management style.
How so?
Well, his staff got almost no encouragement. High praise from Walt was just, that'll work.
The same man demanding flawless execution couldn't really praise his own people. It's like he was repeating the pattern from his own childhood.
And personally, he was trapped. He had to be Uncle Walt, this eternally optimistic figure.
But behind the scenes,
He's described as almost painfully shy, anxious, obsessive, a chain smoker. He was fighting to live up to his own brand.
there's that famous quote where he apparently told a friend
I'm not Walt Disney, I smoke. Walt Disney does not drink, I drink.
he had to hide his real self behind this public facade.
And even Disneyland's opening day in 1955, it was a complete nightmare.
Oh, catastrophe. The asphalt was soft, food ran out, Fantasyland had a gas leak, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride overloaded.
Just chaos. And yet, his daughter Diane said she'd never seen him happier. For Walt, the big vision being real was more important than the flawed details.
And this is where that drive for perfection really becomes a source of conflict. The labor war of 1941.
The studio had grown so fast after Snow White. The new employees, they didn't have that old-school Disney loyalty.
And the bonus system was a mess. People felt the profits weren't being shared fairly.
And Walt's reaction was completely paternalistic. He saw himself as the father and his employees as his boys. He just refused to recognize the Screen Cartoonists Guild or negotiate with its leader, Herbert Sorrell.
Which led to the strike.
And it was bitter. Tremendous bitterness, one source called it. There was vandalism. For Walt, this wasn't a labor dispute. It was a personal betrayal.
This is where he becomes, as one historian put it, completely conventional in how he fights back.
Exactly. Instead of dealing with the economic issues, he defaults to the political argument of the era. It was a communist plot.
And he took that belief all the way to the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, in 1947.
He did. He testified under oath that he believed the strike was instituted by members of the Communist Party to serve their purposes.
He named Sorrell. He listed newspapers like The Daily Worker. The sources suggest this political hardening really intensified after critics, the intellectuals, panned Fantasia.
And this tendency to blame his problems on political enemies, it shows up again with the controversy over Song of the South in 1946.
The cultural fallout from that film was immediate.
It premiered in segregated Atlanta, Georgia. And in this just cruel twist of irony, the film star, James Baskett, who played Uncle Remus, was barred by law from even entering the theater.
The criticism was intense. The NAACP called it a dangerously glorified picture of slavery.
They noted that it implied life was just easier and more carefree in the pre-Civil War South.
Walt's reaction.
He was apparently dismayed, shocked even, but instead of engaging with the criticism, he just decided the attacks were engineered by his old foes, the communists. It was a real blind spot.
It's so clear he was the singular, troubled genius. But we can't talk about his legacy without mentioning the one person who kept the whole thing from collapsing.
His older brother, Roy O. Disney.
The complete opposite of Walt.
Absolutely. Walt was the creative storm. Roy was the calm, methodical protector, the fundraiser, the business partner for over 40 years. He was the one who made the vision financially possible.
And his final act of dedication came right after Walt's death in December of '66. Walt was only 65.
Yeah, and he was working right up to the end. The final anecdote is just, it's haunting.
In the hospital,
in the hospital, pointing up at a map of the Florida property that was on the ceiling tiles, showing Roy where the monorail would go, where the highway would run. The ultimate perfectionist, planning his utopia until his very last moments.
And after Walt died, it was Roy's fierce determination to honor that vision that got Walt Disney World built and opened in 1971.
Roy died just a few months after it opened. It's safe to say the Disney we know today just wouldn't exist without that partnership.
So, to summarize our deep dive, Walt Disney was a genius defined by these extreme opposites. Childhood trauma fueled a relentless drive.
Business failure led to boundless innovation. Mickey, sound, color.
And his utopian vision for Disneyland and EPCA, it was fueled by anxiety, and it masked these deep conflicts over labor and culture.
Which is why his legacy is so polarized.
Yeah.
Did he ruin American culture or inspire it? Critics slam the smooth facade of sentimentality and stubborn optimism, his, feel-good rewrite of American history.
The key is that drive for control. EPCA was the ultimate expression of it, a perfect, controlled community, a city designed for absolute efficiency that will never be completed.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to explore. If Walt Disney had actually succeeded, if he had built EPCA exactly as he planned, a city where every detail, every system is governed by this relentless principle of perfection, would you want to live there?